Hello, everybody. My name is Robert Pruitt. I'm the Vice President of the West Texas Genealogical Society, located in Abilene, Texas. Today's topic will be about United States church records. So let's dive in and begin learning. Overview of our discussion will cover in part 1, family history research in church records. What can I find in church records? Where did my ancestors worship? How do I search church records? How do I order church records? Strategies to use with old church records. What other church records provide more information about the lives of my ancestors? And in part 2, I will cover faiths and denominations. Part 1. What can I find in church records? You may be able to find births, family members' names, ethnicity, baptisms, confirmations, marriages, deaths, burials, funerals, as well as ministry services. So don't overlook any of these items when you're searching and when you pull up either the index or the original image. Here is an index for my 4 times great-grandfather, Gilbert Pruitt. This is located on Ancestry.com. This provides me with his name, baptismal date, as well as his birth date, place where he was baptized, the religion of the family, and his parents' names. And yes, it does only give the mother's first name, not maiden, but it's a start. Here is the marriage record for Gilbert Dustin Pruitt and his wife, Eleanor Madicott, my 4 times great-grandparents. And this is the actual marriage record that is in the parish records. And I've transcribed it over here on the right. And this is great because if I couldn't find the original marriage record in the civil registration records, then this would be the one I would use for my primary source. This is in the civil registration records of England. Both of these images that we just saw were from Family Search when I use full text. Sometimes when you are searching and you find an index, whether it's on Family Search or Ancestry.com or another genealogical site, you can give it a go on Family Search and see if by chance in the full text what they have digitized and all ready to go at home, if it's available. Now, sometimes your records you will have to view at a family search center, so it's always good to know where your local one is located. This is the index for my 6 times great-grandmother, Joan Pruitt. This is her burial record. It gives the date of burial, March 11th, 1794. And it gives an age of about 53, so she was born about 1741. It also provides her faith again in the place of burial. And so if I wanted to go to visit, if the headstone is still there, that would be nice to see. It might not be, I'm not sure. I'd have to look. I haven't ever traveled to England. I hope one day to be able to. But this could lead me to her baptismal record because at least I have now a estimated year of birth, and maybe I can find the marriage record as well within the parish. This was on Ancestry.com, the index. So then I hopped over to Family Search, and I was able to locate the actual image. And so on the first page, we have the header where it says a true and exact copy of the births and christenings, marriages, and burials within the parish of Paignton in the year of our Lord, God 1794, taken from the register of the said parish. And she's located from the second to the last on the list, Joan Pruitt, age 53, on March 11th. So sometimes you can, in this example, find an index on one site and actually find the image on the other while you are at home. Again, sometimes the records are not available at home, and so you would have to visit a family search center. It's just with the agreement that Family Search has with some of these entities is why you would have to visit. Or in some cases, third option would be actually going to the exact location to do the research, which would be kind of cool also, in my opinion. Where did my ancestors worship? Begin by asking your living relatives. Review your personal genealogical archives is what I call it. Look through those vital records, obituaries of relatives, local and county histories, newspaper articles, heirlooms, and artifacts. All of these are great ways to start looking into your own family to see where they may have worshiped, what their faith was. Where did my ancestors worship? We're continuing on. You look at their migration. Look at the historical maps of the time. And also look in city directories. All excellent resources. You may ask, where are the records? Look in local churches, county and state archives. Historical and genealogical societies sometimes have these as well. Some universities and colleges in their archive collections have them. And church archives, certain faiths may have them. And look online. Here is an example from the Claiborne County Historical Society in Tennessee. This is about my family, Alexander Marion. A distant cousin sent me this. It provides the history of the family a bit. It gives the name of the children. It provides also the name of the places where he was a minister, which was great. I knew that he had been a minister because there had been stories passed down about him and that his daughter, my great-great-grandmother, was a preacher's kid. And so anyway, I thought this was a really cool article that the gentleman sent me. On the bottom, you see a picture of Alexander and his wife. This was the second wife. And then at the top, there's a little boy. That's their son. So he was a half-brother to my great-great-grandmother. Anyway, this is just an example where you can find possibly the faith of your ancestors and maybe learn, if you didn't know, if the ancestor was a minister or a clergyman or a leader in the church that you worship or they worshiped. Very interesting article. Now, ordering church records. You can go about this by searching at church offices, church archives, state and local archives, published records, digitized records, and also the WPA, Works Progress Administration. It was later named the Work Projects Administration. Back in the 30s, the WPA went in and began to record histories of churches and counties and take stories and accounts from the people, and they began to copy, and some of these records from the churches were digitized. And then later Family Search went in as well. So utilize all of these if you're interested in ordering church records. Please be polite when you are speaking with someone because they may be very busy with their duties for the week. It might be, just as a good example, to maybe write a letter requesting it, maybe sending a donation. That might help encourage the search along the way as well. So have patience and just enjoy connecting with the people. Sometimes you might even find that you have long lost cousins that still attend this church, and they are great to help you at times. Strategies to use when you're researching old church records. You want to find the originals. Those are going to have your gold nuggets on them of all the fabulous information that you want. And there may be guidelines such as wearing gloves to keep the document safe or a mask. Just whatever the rules are at the place you go to visit, make sure you follow them and always be polite. Other church records could include histories of parishes and assemblies, encyclopedias of denominations, bulletins, original admin docs, ministers' records, and in some cases, cemeteries. excellent resources to use besides just your what basic history of the church is available. So utilize all records when you're searching. Here is the church that's located in Washburn, Grange County, Tennessee. This was a photo taken by Ashley Falossi. Ashley, if you're watching, I apologize if I mispronounced your name. Thank you and Cousin Becky for allowing me to use this picture in this presentation. This is the church that my ancestor Alexander Marion was a part of, and they began. It was the beginning members, and he preached here, so it's still active. Again, thank you, cousins, and also thank you, cousin Becky. This was some of the church history that she provided for me a while back, and I wanted to include. And it provides when they began, and an old picture, and some of the clerks of the church, as well as the ordained 9 men that were listed below. And there is Alexander Marion, our ancestor. And here are a couple of more pages of some information, the pastors of the churches over time, as well as the charter members. I couldn't think of the word a moment ago for beginning members, so y'all excuse me. It's charter members there. And look at there, him, his wife, and a couple of their children. So anyway, this was very wonderful, exciting information that when I received it, and I appreciate it very much, cousin Becky. Thank you. So sometimes y'all reach out to the church or churches where your family may have lived, because you could have relatives there, and when they have the time, they might be able to help you get the copies of the things you need. So thank you, cousin. Okay, faiths and denominations. We'll dive in. Now, this is going to be an overview of several different faiths and or denominations, religions, and some history and places where you can possibly look at ordering records. We're going to begin with the Anglican Episcopal Church, and this will be from the time of the colonies to the present time. This is on thearda.com, and fabulous website, exciting to me, and it shows you a family tree of the faiths. Now, not all of these faiths we will speak about have a family tree, but just visit thearda.com and look for the faith that you're interested in and see if there's a family tree. It will show the changes over time. So this was the Anglican Episcopal. History and landscape. The evolution of the Episcopal Church in America. 1607, the foundation, Jamestown, Virginia. First permanent Anglican parish in North America is established. In Virginia and other southern colonies, the Church of England becomes the established church, state-funded church. 1693 to 1702, Anglicanism becomes the official state religion in New York and Maryland. Parishes began acting as civil units, recording births, baptisms, marriages, and deaths for the entire population. So the key words there are entire population. So if your ancestors were living in these areas, or in another area where this faith was, then look at these church records, the history of their churches, because you might be surprised to find some information about them in their records. And that's the faiths across the board here. Look at all faiths. Don't leave any stone unturned with any of these when you're doing your research. From 1775 to 1783, the Revolutionary Rift. The American Revolution creates a crisis. Clergy are torn between their oath to the king and the cause of independence. Many northern parishes close as loyalist clergy flee to Canada or England. In 1784, the first American bishop, Samuel Seabury, is consecrated in Scotland as the first American bishop. This ensures the apostolic succession continuing in the United States without requiring an oath of allegiance to the British crown. In 1789, you have the birth of the Episcopal Church. The first General Convention is held in Philadelphia. The denomination officially organizes as the Protestant Episcopal Church in the United States of America, adopting its own constitution and a revised Book of Common Prayer. From the 1800s to the present, the church follows the frontier westward, establishing missionary dioceses. Today, it remains a member of the Global Anglican Communion, maintaining historical ties to the Church of England while remaining fully autonomous. Now, we've got migration and regional record differences. Pre-1789 records are usually found under the Church of England or colonial parish headings, while post-1789 records are filed under Episcopal. The experience of the Anglican Church in colonial America was split in geography, which fundamentally changed how records were kept and where they are found today. Okay, we have the migration patterns. The southern stronghold, you had Virginia, the Carolinas, Maryland. Anglicanism migrated primarily via direct English settlement. In the south, it was the Church of the Gentry. As tobacco and cotton exhausted the soil, these families migrated west and southwest into Kentucky, Tennessee, Alabama, Mississippi, carrying their prayer books and social status with them. In the northern presence, the north migration was often driven by administration and merchant classes in port cities such as New York and Philadelphia. And because of the Puritan Congregationalist dominance in New England, Anglicans there were often a migrant minority rather than the ruling class. This was in the states of New York, Pennsylvania, and all other New England states. All right, post-revolution movement. Following the War of 1812, the church pushed into the Old Northwest, which was Ohio, Illinois, and Michigan, through missionary circuits. Episcopal migration often followed established trade routes and urban centers rather than the frontier trail style of the Methodist or Baptist. Now, the record keeping is a little bit different, and here is a slide with a table. And if you need to pause this to go through to take your notes, please do. This just was the difference between the southern colonies and the northern and middle colonies of the items listed here on the left, legal status, the repository today. So just glance over this information and see what can help you with your research. A pro tip: in the South, if the church records are missing, you can often reconstruct a family's presence using the vestry minutes. Because the vestry handled social services, these were like caring for the orphans and elderly. Your ancestors might appear in church records even if they weren't particularly religious. So again, check out the records. You may be surprised what you find. The next faith is Baptists. And here is the family tree there. Founded in 1609 in Amsterdam, it reached the colonies in 1638, emerging from the English separatist movement. First American church was founded by Roger Williams in Rhode Island. A diverse family of churches with shared foundations but distinct associational beliefs, characterized by believers' baptism, which was immersion of adults rather than infant baptisms. This means that you will not find infant baptism records in the Baptist faith. It was a staple in other denominations, though. Utilize independent Baptist archives for both national and local and historical data. Pinpoint your ancestors' local church, locate those surviving registers, and document their religious heritage. The migration for the faith moved from New England and the Mid-Atlantic into the southern backcountry. They were primarily frontier church, following the movement of the common man into the West. The differences between the North and the South are that the records are often more formal and held in regional historical societies. In the South, especially for Southern Baptists, they're often found in local church minutes. Minutes are vital because they record members received by letter, proving where they were from. And here is a timeline summary. 1638, we've got the First Baptist Church in America. Providence, Rhode Island. 1740s, we have the Great Awakening. 1814, we have the formation of the Triennial Convention, and then 1845, we have the split over the issue of slavery, which formed the Southern Baptist Convention. So your plan of action when you're researching Baptist is to look for the business meetings and check associations, those district association records, visit the Southern Baptist Historical Library archives that's in Nashville, or American Baptist Historical Society in Atlanta, Georgia. Please note, because Baptists emphasize local history autonomy, records are decentralized. Here is an example of the church minutes books from the Union Baptist Church in Dallas, Texas. This is found on the Texas History Portal website. And the center image is a page of the original book, and it provides information about my great-great-grandfather, Azora Grimes. And it says that he was received by experience in July of 1890, along with others listed there, which I think is very special. If you'll note above on the top, we have the lady that actually provided she went back and she copied this entire book and had it typed, and it's recorded at the library. And so the librarian was able to send me the image number 3 there, it's the typed page. So anyway, but I really like going back to look at the original book, and you can go on this website and go page by page to see, and it's just fascinating to see the different changes in the with the people joining, with people leaving, letters out, and so on. So you never know what family history you'll find in books like this. This is an article that was passed on to me from Dorothy Morris many years ago, and it's about the history of the church. It was published in 1933. So check that out, and pause the video here at this point if you'd like to read a little bit more. It's a very precious thing to have history of your church in newspapers. So check out all newspapers just to see when they might have had maybe anniversaries, or they had special occasions, celebrations of sorts. That'll help you with your family history research as well. The Methodist. Here is the family tree on this slide, and we're going to have another slide with the family tree because it was too big to fit on one. Okay. It started as a revival movement within the Church of England by John Wesley. It became a separate denomination in America in 1784. It's highly organized. They had circuit riders, like the image on the previous slide of the gentleman on the horse. He was known as a circuit rider. They traveled on horseback to remote settlements, meaning one minister's ledger might contain marriages for 5 different counties. And that would be kind of cool to find out. Be like, oh, my family lived in this county, then they married here, and this was the minister. And then to actually find the actual book of the record to see that, he passed through here. So they kept these ledgers, and they kept also journals, and they would submit these later to archives. Sometimes they're still in family homes, and also you go through all of your heirlooms and everything, like I mentioned earlier, because you never know what books that was kept by your ancestor could hold. The methodical movement, it was founded in the 18th century, England, by John and Charles Wesley. Now, in the colonial beginnings, these brothers were invited by James Oglethorpe in 1735 to the colony of Georgia, and a diverse collection of churches in the Methodist faith share the Wesleyan foundation but maintain specific denominational identities. Use Methodist archives to find national, regional, and local church records when you're researching. Extremely mobile were they. Methodism grew faster than any other group in the 19th century by following the circuit westward through the Ohio and the Mississippi River valleys. Now, some record differences. The circuit records Records aren't always at the local church. They're often in the circuit rider's personal journal or a centralized quarterly conference book. Also check membership rolls. They kept meticulous class leader lists. So, again, don't leave any book or stone unturned. Go through everything. Here is a timeline for the Methodist faith. It's 1760, the first Methodist societies formed in New York and Maryland. In 1784, the Christmas Conference in Baltimore, the Methodist Episcopal Church is officially formed. 1844, they split over slavery, and you have the ME Church in the North, Methodist Episcopal, and then you have the Methodist Episcopal Church in the South. Your action plan for research is to identify the circuit. Don't just look for the town, look for the circuit name that the area covered. Find the conference. Records are usually kept at the annual conference archives housed at a Methodist-affiliated university. Check the Christian Advocate, their national newspaper, for obituaries. Also, while many records are at universities, the General Commission on Archives and History in Madison, New Jersey is the overwhelming national archive for their faith. So check it out and see what you might be able to locate. Now, in a future slide, I have golden records that are also notated on your syllabus, and this will be linked in the description. The church and town records were the same. They are primarily true for colonial New England pre-1820. After the de-establishment of state religions, these records became separate. The cheat sheet tip provided also on a future slide is most accurate for the 1600s to the early 1800s. The next faith, Presbyterian. And here is their family tree. Rooted in the 16th century Reformation in Scotland, led by John Knox, and in Switzerland, led by John Calvin. Immigrants from Scotland and Northern Ireland, the Scotch-Irish, brought these faiths to America in the 17th and 18th centuries. Governed by presbyteries, or regional bodies, and synods, the first presbytery in America was organized by Francis Makemie, the father of American Presbyterianism. In 1644, established in colonial America in Hempstead, New York. Like many faiths, it has evolved into various branches, as we saw on that family tree a moment ago. All right, when you're researching your ancestor, look in the archives that could house these records, and they're all of different sizes for the different sizes of the congregations. Resources cover everything from major urban centers to isolated rural churches. Please note these official records are highly organized. So again, check it out. Check out their all the sources that are available here. I have some listed on the syllabus and on these slides in a moment. The initial settlements were in the middle colonies, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and Delaware. Large groups moved down the Great Wagon Road into the southern back country and then pushed westward into Ohio and Kentucky following the Revolution. And the differences are you have urban north and southern frontier. Your records are often well kept and preserved in formal registers. In the South, due to the war, the Civil War, or migration, they are sparse. I hope I've said that correctly. And so look for session minutes. These often exist where vital records do not. Here is the timeline. We have 1706. It was first organized in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania in 1789. You have the first General Assembly held. You have a major split in 1837. And then in 1861, you have the division over slavery, forming the Presbyterian Church in the Confederate States. Search on Ancestry.com is one action plan. Here you can contact the Presbyterian Historical Society that's in Philadelphia. And remember, check the session minutes for those letters of transfers. Those are gold mines for sure. Our next faith is Quaker, Society of Friends, or Brethren. And here is their family tree. They were formed in 1647 by George Fox in England. Early missionaries arrived in the American colonies by 1655. No clergy or sacraments. Instead, they are organized by meetings. So those would be monthly meetings, quarterly, or yearly. Please note you will not find baptism records, as Quakers do not practice water baptism. Records are arguably the most detailed in American genealogy, however, quite detailed. So if you have ancestors in this faith, search out the books and records for sure, because you may find those elusive ancestors that you've been hunting for forever. Migration. The primary centers were Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Rhode Island. In the mid-1700s, many of them moved to the Carolinas and Georgia. The anti-slavery push after 1784, when yearly meetings abolished slavery, thousands of Quakers migrated out of the South to the Midwest in the states of Ohio and Indiana to avoid living in slave states. The records are consistent across regions because they followed the same strict administrative rules. When they would move, they followed the same rules, is what I mean. Here is the timeline. 1681, William Penn receives the charter for Pennsylvania, establishing a Quaker haven. 1750, it was the third largest religion in the British colonies. And then you had the Hicksite Orthodox split, and that was a major schism within the Religious Society of Friends. It divided the community into what they call the Hicksite and the Orthodox branches, primarily stemming from the theological differences, class disparities, and divergent views on modern evangelical Protestantism. And here are a couple of options for research. There's an Encyclopedia of American Quaker Genealogy, Encyclopedia of American Quaker Genealogy. Look for removals, certificates of removals of people when they moved, and use Ancestry's Quaker meeting records also. Roman Catholicism. The oldest Christian institution with a presence in Florida and the Southwest via Spanish missions as early as the 1500s. In the 13 colonies, Maryland in 1634 was the primary Catholic haven, organized into parishes that were local, which are a part of a diocese regional overseen by a bishop. Records were almost always kept in the Latin language until the mid-20th century. Because the church is a global hierarchy, records are remarkably consistent and detailed. Now, migration. Major waves followed immigration patterns. You had the Irish in the 1840s, German in the mid-1800s. You had Italian and Polish the late 1800s. It's good to know the migration patterns of our ancestors because it helps us partly with their settlement of where they ended up in the New World, as they called it. These groups settled heavily in New York City, Boston, and Chicago. Now, regional differences in the Southwest and Florida. Early records are in Spanish, and they often include extensive casta or ethnic information. In the Northeast or Midwest, the records are often tied to specific ethnic parishes, such as Polish church versus an Irish church in the same neighborhood. And here is the timeline. 1565, the first Catholic parish in the future U.S. founded in St. Augustine, Florida. 1789, John Carroll becomes the first U.S. bishop. And then you've got the 1840s, 1850s, massive Irish and German immigration, causing a population explosion. In 1962 to 1965, Vatican II transitions the Mass from Latin to English, affecting how later records are written. Now, here is your plan of action. Don't just look for the closest church. Look for the one that served your ancestors' nationality. Contact the chancery. If a parish is closed, its records are usually moved to the chancery office there. Find the sacramental record. Look for baptismal certificates. They often have annotations in the margins notating the person's later marriage or ordination. And we're going to look at an example of my ancestors here in just a minute. On the next slide, to be exact, this is my great-grandmother, Maria Palone, on my father's side. This is her baptismal record on the right, and on the page prior to this one is that annotation listing when she and my great-grandfather married. I have not been able to locate the marriage record yet. I'm still in the process of researching and contacting the archives, but this was in that same book. So flip a couple of pages before, a couple of pages after, or maybe all the way through the whole book, because you never know when these annotations could be posted. And if your ancestor by chance has one, then you could luck out. So this is really cool. Congregationalists is our next faith. Here's their family tree. Okay, they emerged from the separatist movement in England. The Pilgrims landed in Plymouth 1620 and the Puritans in Massachusetts Bay in 1630, establishing the faith as the foundation of New England. Each church is completely autonomous. In early New England, the church was the town square. Church membership was often required to vote or hold office. Please note that these records are of the Pilgrims and the Puritans, where church and town were often the same. Important. Heavily consecrated in New England in the 1800s, they migrated across the Yankee Tier into upstate New York, Ohio, the Western Reserve, Michigan, and Wisconsin. The plan of union. In the early 1800s, Congregationalists and Presbyterians cooperated on the frontier. You may find an ancestor switching between these two denominations depending on which building was available. So again, you might say, well, they were this faith, but maybe they attended this other faith's meetings. Look in those church records. Look in those records. It doesn't necessarily mean that you will find it, but you could. Here is the timeline summary. 1620, the Mayflower arrives. Plymouth Colony founded. In 1648, the Cambridge Platform formalizes the congregational system. 1820s, the Unitarian split causes many first churches in New England to leave the congregational fold. And in 1957, merger with the Evangelical and Reformed Church, creating the United Church of Christ. And your plan of action for research for this faith would be to check the town records, visit the Congregational Library and Archives in Boston, and also consult what they call the Blue Books. This could help you out a lot. Dutch Reformed Church in America. Okay, this one did not have a family tree on the website, so we won't see one with this faith. It was founded in 1572 in the Netherlands and shaped by John Calvin. Dutch settlers brought into Manhattan, which at the time was New Amsterdam, in 1628, making it one of the oldest denominations in America. For a time, it was the only permitted public denomination in New Amsterdam. Records are often in Dutch until the mid-1700s. Originally clustered in New York and New Jersey, in the 1800s, new waves of Dutch immigrants settled the frontier in Iowa, Kansas, and the Dakotas. Because of their early dominance, many non-Dutch families appear in their marriage records and baptismal records if they lived in New Amsterdam before 1664. I want to pause here for just a moment and state that on Family Search, they have groups that you can join for free, that if you find a record that you need help with translation, that most of the people there are willing to do so at no cost. All you can do is give it a try, post it in that specific group, and then move on. Also, there's of course AI programs and other types of ways that you can get this help done. You can, if you can find someone, whether they're local or non-local resident where you live, that would be willing to help you sit down and translate or to have it mailed or etc. So don't give up if you come across the records, what I'm meaning, of another language that you're not able to speak. So I'm not able to speak Italian, so I definitely would need assistance with translating my father's ancestry. And here is the timeline. 1628, First Congregation organized on Manhattan Island. 1792 declares independence from the Classis of Amsterdam. And 1867 officially adopts the name Reformed Church in America. Your action plan would be to look on Ancestry.com and contact the RCA archives. Also, watch for naming. They may have had the surname, and I apologize because I don't speak the language. Jans maybe is how it's pronounced, meaning the son of Jan, rather than fixed surnames. So work on looking through the names that way and researching when you're for this faith. Again, this was in the Dutch language. German churches, Reformed and sectarian, excuse me. All right, it's organized in 1725 by John Philip Boehm in Pennsylvania, remaining under Dutch oversight until 1793. Sectarian refers to a smaller group like and in German, I believe it's pronounced Zwankfelders, but in the States, they changed the pronunciation and they called it Schwenkfelders. They're also known as, or German Baptist Dunkards, known for meticulous record keeping. Historically intertwined with the Dutch, but later distinct. Please note this. Primarily centered in Pennsylvania, Lancaster, Berks, and Montgomery counties, they migrated south into the Shenandoah Valley and west into Ohio. The records were often kept in German until the early 19th century. And here is the timeline. 1725, the first German Reformed congregation organized near Philadelphia. In 1793, adopts its own constitution as the German Reformed Church. And in 1957, it merged with what is now the United Church of Christ. And here's your plan of action for research on Family Search, as well as using volumes that have been published, such as the Pennsylvania German Church Records. The Mennonite and Amish. Here is their family tree. Emerged in the 16th century in Switzerland and the Netherlands, the Amish split from the Mennonites in 1693. They emphasize on adult baptism and separation from the world. So again, you won't find infant baptismal records. Please note these Anabaptist groups prioritize community and lineage over formal sacramental registries. Settled first in Pennsylvania in the late 1600s, they later moved into Ohio, Indiana, and Kansas. A large group of Mennonites also arrived from Russia in the 1870s. Because they don't baptize infants, genealogical data is often found in family Bibles, cemetery records, and almanacs rather than formal parish registers. And here is the timeline. 1683, first Mennonite settlers arrive in Germantown, Pennsylvania. The Amish become a separate branch in 1693, and then you have the Russian Mennonite migration to the Great Plains in 1874. So the plan of action, check out Family Search, and they have a global database listed there that you can pause at this point to write down and research. Our next faith is Lutheran. Here is the family tree. It was founded in the 16th century Germany by Martin Luther, the first organized American Lutheran body, and this was formed in 1748 in Pennsylvania. Traditionally organized along linguistic and national lines, German, Swedish, Norwegian, and Danish, records were kept in the native language of the congregation often until World War I. Please note, Lutheran records are highly prized by genealogists for their detail, often including an ancestor's town of origin in Europe. Ding, 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 we have a winner. We can cross the pond and we can find that town, because you need the town, not just the state or the county in that country. Initial settlement was in Pennsylvania in the mid-Atlantic. In the mid to late 19th century, a massive wave of Scandinavian and German Lutherans settled in the upper Midwestern states of Minnesota, Wisconsin, and the Dakotas. And the record differences you have here are German records often include family registries, and the Scandinavian records, they are like the Dutch. They would use Anderson, example, son of Anders. So note that when you're researching. Here is the timeline. 1638, the first Swedish Lutheran congregation in New Sweden, which is the state of Delaware. 1748, you have the formal organization of the first Lutheran Synod in North America, I think. Hopefully I pronounced that right. And 1847, you have the formation of the Missouri Synod, a major conservation branch. In 1988, a merger of three large bodies. It was into the Evangelical Lutheran Church in America. Here is the action plan that you can take. Check out records on Ancestry.com. Be prepared to have a translation guide to use with this faith as well as the others. And also check out any archives for the ELCA and the LCMS archives. Sorry about that. The Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Here is the family tree on the website. It's founded by Joseph Smith in 1830 in Fayette, New York, following reported visions and the publication of the Book of Mormon. It's highly centralized. The church views family history as a religious duty, resulting in the creation of the world's largest genealogical library, Family Search. Please note, LDS records are unique because of the church's theological focus on genealogy and proxy ordinances. The migration was characterized by the gathering. Members moved from New York to Ohio, then Missouri and Illinois. Following Smith's death, the main body, led by Brigham Young, migrated to the Great Salt Lake Valley in the state of, which would later become the state of Utah in 1847. In Utah and Idaho, excellent centralized records of pioneers and their descendants. For international, extensive records of European converts who migrated to the United States in the 19th century are your regional differences. Here is the timeline. 1830, the church formally organized in New York. 1844 was the death of Joseph Smith. Leadership crisis leads to several splinter groups. 1847, the first pioneer company enters the Salt Lake Valley. In 1894, you have the founding of the Genealogical Society of Utah. And so your action plan would be to definitely utilize FamilySearch.org and consult the church library that's in Salt Lake City. If you can go there in person for journals, letters, all the above. I hope to one day be able to visit. Check also ward records as well. All right, this is on your syllabus, so I'm not going to go through each one, but this provides the repository level, the faiths typically of what are found there and why. This is also on your syllabus. This is the golden record that I mentioned a moment ago slide. This is excellent information on it, so if you need to pause it, you can. The top 5 questions that you could ask an archivist. This is something to have in your researcher's toolkit. Number 1, do you hold the original registers or have they been moved to a regional archive? And you may say why. Well, this saves time and prevents them from waiting on a response from a location that no longer has the books. I'll go ahead and put the number 2 and number 3 up. Are there any vestry minutes or business meeting records available for this time period, and why? Does the parish have an ethnic or national library, and why? And here is the 4th and the 5th question. Are there records of letters of transfers or certificates of removal? Is there a local cemetery transcription or a map of the churchyard? Wouldn't that be wonderful to be able to have from colonial times, or even from a place in Europe? While civil records like birth certificates and deeds give us the skeleton of an ancestor's life, church records provide the flesh and blood. They reveal the communities they built, the values they held, the neighbors that they trusted. Whether your ancestor was a devout Quaker in Pennsylvania or a Methodist pioneer on the frontier, their story is likely recorded in a dusty ledger somewhere. By understanding the migration patterns and record-keeping habits of these different faiths, we can bridge the gaps in our family trees and bring our history to life. Here are the sources that I used for this presentation. References as well, and these are listed on the syllabus. I also provided my contact information. Please use whichever one you'd like to communicate with me. If you're interested, you can comment on the video once I am able to get it up on my YouTube channel as well. And if you have any questions, please put those in the comment section of the video, or again, utilize whatever method you'd like to use to contact me. I appreciate you taking the time to watch this. I hope it's been informative, and hope you all have a great day.